Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, public safety community, and welcome to PSN Now, News of the Week. We get the best news, the best week, everything that we can muster up to entertain you and make you more informed about public safety technology and key events. My name is Jason Karp, Esquire, and I am here with Tarzan and Jane Kennedy, otherwise known as TJ. TJ, how you doing?
Good, Jason. How are you?
All right. So, TJ, thank you for joining me in the studio today. Normally you're remote by satellite. Today, you're joining me in the studio. I love this.
Oh, it's nice to finally be here. It's nice of you to invite me over.
Yeah, it's nice to have you in person. Socially distanced, of course.
We've got our 12 feet because I don't trust 6 with you.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you. In any event, we've got a lot of great news, a lot of interesting news, obviously a tremendous amount of things going on right now in the entire, not just in public safety, but certainly public safety focused, but certainly the entire country. But let me start, as I always do, with just a little bit of COVID update. There's some interesting new tech going on now with COVID. Now that just about every state is loosening restrictions and people are getting back out into the community and businesses are opening, there's new, what I'll call counting tech. So these have been an explosion of new companies that are coming out that are able to count and track the number of people in given environments in order to ensure that it's not overloaded and that people are maintaining a safe distance. Several companies, there's one called Density, which has seen a 560% jump in growth this year. And they have a technology for limiting the number of people in conference rooms. And they give you an estimated wait time on a little screen outside. So that's pretty cool. Another one, wait time, which is kind of the ways for concession lines, right? If I want to know how long a concession line is, I look at the app and I say, I'm going to wait until it's shorter. Well, now they're looking at monitoring public bathrooms and at stadiums and other things to give notifications of when it's safe to enter. So, for example, TJ, after you've left, it's safe to enter the bathroom.
I was thinking this was more of like they went to the DMV and figured out there was like waiting in line technology, and now they've transferred it to the rest of us.
Well, it's a new normal now. So really interesting, but just a huge explosion. Companies like VergeSense, Sensor, SafeCount, huge thing. So we're going to see more and more of this. So it'll be interesting, not just for us, as everyday citizens and being able to manage our distance, but as public safety is looking at being tasked with enforcing some of these new rules and making sure people are safe. There's going to be some new tools that they're going to be using.
I think it's good. I think it's interesting. I think that as long as we make it simple and it allows us to safely work through this pandemic and still do what we need to do, it's going to help move things along quickly.
Yeah. So next story, and this is the big one, the big kahuna of what's going on, right? So unrest in America. The untimely death of George Floyd and all of the protests and demonstrations and looting and, a lot of difficult things going on, a lot of difficult questions being posed. Some are very positive in terms of, some of the results we're seeing and people coming together and supporting each other. And obviously a lot of challenges for law enforcement, for all of public safety right now, in managing through the protests, managing through the riots and the looting, just having to deal with now a larger sense of bias, against these institutions and keeping them safe and keeping our citizens safe. So, TJ, what does public safety need to focus on? What should citizens be focusing on? It's a highly emotional time right now, but really important that we remain balanced and work together to get through this problem.
I think first and foremost is we have to know that there has to be reforms around what happened in the George Floyd case specifically. There has to be consequences held for those who committed crimes in doing that, including, already charges of murder. And people are understandably upset, and they should be. I'm upset. And I think that we need to, as a country, come together and support these peaceful protests. We need to, it's amazing to see the amount of police chiefs and others who are out there with their communities, interacting with their communities, being a part of those peaceful protests and supporting that. All of our citizens have a First Amendment right to protest and to communicate their desires and their needs. And I think most importantly, it's up to all of us as citizens and as public safety to ensure that that can safely occur every single day. And it needs to occur. I think there's nothing wrong with that. There's a difference when we get into some of the unlawful activities that you mentioned around rioting or burning down buildings or other things that are occurring. Those are crimes. And obviously, threats to life and property, need to be addressed by public safety. And this is a dangerous time. I haven't seen some of the dangers to firefighters responding to fires like this since probably 1992 when we go back to what happened in LA with Rodney King. And so I think it's a very dangerous time for our first responders, and we need to make sure they have the right tools, the right capabilities to be able to respond safely, the right personal protective equipment to deal with both the pandemic and what's going on now. But I just don't want to lose sight of the more important issue overall, which is that we need to protect that First Amendment right to speak up about an injustice and to be able to do that safely in our communities, and that we as public safety are part of that community. And I think that's key.
No, absolutely spot on. And we could obviously talk about this for hours and hours. And in future episodes, I expect, we will talk a little bit more about the future of policing and how to deal with some of these issues, I think more systemically. But for now, in terms of ensuring that our first responders remain safe. I mean, you and I obviously huge proponents of communications and new communications technology and the work we did with FirstNet. Even more critical right now that there's effective, a communications ability out for first responders if they do get caught into situations where their lives are in danger or they have to take action, being able to quickly share real-time situational awareness data of what's going on, more important than ever right now. Body-worn camera is obviously something that's been a very big point of discussion in law enforcement, but that kind of leads us to a segue into another story, but it's really related to this, is we now have the first EMS agency that is done an agency-wide deployment of Axon body cameras, and it's Cypress Creek EMS in Harris County, Texas. And they have now deployed fully body cameras at a point of view perspective. So not the chest worn, but worn like from an eyeglass perspective so that the camera's picking up everything the EMT or the paramedic is seeing. And this has a lot of different value points to it. I mean, as we're talking about what's going on with George Floyd and the protests, there's a protective element to this in that, obviously if an EMT is wearing a body camera, they're recording the situation, they're being able to send real-time information, situational awareness that could protect them. It could protect the citizens that they're helping. It can deter aggressive behavior towards them if folks know that they're being recorded. And we know there's been attacks both on EMS as well as recently bricks being thrown at the firefighters. But there's a lot of other elements to this technology as well, right?
There are. I mean, I think, first of all, I've been a supporter of body-worn video for both law enforcement and for fire and EMS. I think that it protects citizens. I think that it shows in real time what's happening. I think now that we have real-time video, it's giving that situational awareness element we talked about earlier. And I think that that's more important than ever. But I think it's also very important for learning. I think one of the things we've seen, and go beyond the events of the past week or two, but in general, we need to learn from our mistakes. We need to learn from the experience we have with difficult trauma patients, with difficult medical patients, things of that nature. We have to maintain the privacy of those particular cases and incidents. But we have always done quality assurance review of emergency medical services cases as part of the EMS learning since I've ever been involved in it. And so it's been a long time common practice. Traditionally, that's been done with mostly an EMS patient care record, and that's it. And we haven't had the kind of rich media that you can now have to really learn from the difficulty of that particular incident that you were on, the actual circumstances, the weather, the particular injuries to that particular patient. So I do think that this will create a much better learning environment post those calls for EMTs and paramedics around the world. I think that it will also help for crew resource management. One of the things that has been done in the fire service and in EMS for a long time, I remember back to my days at Life Flight when we instituted crew resource management around safety, is that ensuring that everyone's always acting safely in what they're doing. And if there are issues, to be able to highlight them. And I do think body-worn video is going to be able to help add to that. I think that there's things to be done across public safety with crew resource management that will make a difference, because it will allow anyone to speak up when they're seeing something that's wrong. It will allow you to really communicate a different path for what's happening in real time in a very difficult situation. And so I think that we have to look at where that's worked well and apply it to other parts of public safety. And I do think that's pertinent to even the events of recent time, because there are changes that need to occur. And I think we need to find ways to make it at the most basic level of training and institutional policy in agencies. And I think that body-worn video will assist with that.
Yeah, and also, what's exciting about it, and I know when they first deployed the cameras in Cypress Creek, everything was recorded on the camera. Nothing was recorded on the phone or the application they were using, and then it would be uploaded when they get back to the station, when they uploaded the camera. Now with the new third generation Axon body cameras that they're trialing, now they've got real-time streaming. So, also leveraging the cloud. We've talked about this, an ultimate number of times. But leveraging the cloud, so all that data that you talked about, whether it's for quality assurance, whether it's for protection, whether it's for evidence in the later court proceeding, all that information now can be captured in real time, cataloged, characterized, edited, in a truly automated fashion. So it makes all of those tasks much, much easier and give a greater ability to pull information and pull data when necessary, no matter what the need is.
No, I agree. And I think that leveraging the cloud is the future. I would say it's actually the current times of public safety. There are so many things we could do faster and better if we were more able to leverage the cloud in a mobile wireless way, which we are now today. And so I think that finding things, whether it's body-worn video, whether it's real-time situational awareness, whether it's communication platforms for hospitals connecting with EMS in real time and getting that patient data in real time, platforms like Pulsera and others, I think that these are the kinds of things that are going to really transform the way that we perform emergency medical services, as well as across public safety. And it's going to make us all safer as well.
Absolutely. I know in Cypress Creek, they've cited statistics about how, 50% reduction in field training, that, this is having not only just an impact on safety and an impact on potential patient outcomes and other things, but a real financial and efficiency impact with the agency. So, there's another element to all of this where you can have reduced training time, more time in the field. And that's critical, for these agencies who are obviously struggling with budgets, especially now during this pandemic, when tax revenues are down and budgets are going to be down. So needing to find better ways, new ways to be more efficient in terms of operations.
Agreed.
So with that said, that takes us on to our last segment of PSN News of the Week, which we all know is, TJ?
PSN Wow.
Yes, we are serious. This is PSN Wow. So we got two big stories for you today. First, a little bit of angst, and this is going to go off of our earlier story about the country in turmoil. Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We all know, and of course TJ has been a law enforcement officer, there are absolute legitimate uses for tear gas, for rubber bullets, for use of force necessary in crowd control, in protecting the life and health and safety of citizens, of public safety, absolutely. And these are tools that are 100% necessary to keep officers safe. However, when people are engaged in lawful, peaceful protests, these are tools that should never be used. And yes, 2 days ago, I guess now, just out of nowhere, peaceful protest, we had rubber bullets shot into a crowd, we had use of tear gas, we had various flash bombs and attacks on the press. And this is something that we have seen throughout the country, not just now in Washington, D.C., where there have been what appear to be deliberate attacks on the press who are trying to record the situations going on with these protests, and which have oftentimes turned into riots. But in this case, completely peaceful. Later followed by a photo op by the President of the United States. I have no words, so I just have to say PSN, wow. Enough said. Anyway, the size says it all. Ending as we always do on a good note, on a positive note, SpaceX. We are back in the space program. So the SpaceX Dragon capsule not only had a wonderful takeoff this weekend, but docked with the International Space Station. Went swimmingly, a perfect success. You know, this is a bright, little bit of a bright shining star in a dark time right now. Space exploration has, historically been, a vision for American ingenuity and hope. And, all I can say is let's hope that this is a new step forward, not just for the space program, but for people coming together and understanding what's important and trying to put all of this divisiveness aside. It's nice at least that there's some successful, activities going on. It was good to see. I know that people who watched the launch, it was very exciting. I remember, although I don't remember it, but I was popped in front of the TV when we landed on the moon, back in '69. I think that was before you were born, TJ.
I was not born yet, Jason,
Yeah,
by the way.
so,
That's something.
Even though you look older than me.
Oh, my gosh.
But so that is a PSN WOW event, a positive WOW event. I think something very exciting. We just got to hold on to some of these positive things that are going on and continue to push forward to improve and to get through this crisis we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great things is I'm still excited and proud to see rockets launch into space, especially with astronauts on it from the United States. I've seen a launch from Cape Canaveral, and it's just you can feel it emotionally, physically from your body to be able to see that occur. It's so cool to know that we're still launching astronauts into space, and that what I think is monumental about this particular one is two things. One, it was done obviously in with a private company that has now found ways to make it faster, better, less expensive, more effective, more efficient to get folks to and from space and to reuse rockets and to do things in a smarter manner. And I think everybody in government can learn from that. And that's also a program that we have to remember has been underway for many years. And it's just like we have done in the past with FirstNet and other major endeavors. There's a lot of years of work that happen behind the scenes that people don't see, even for these monumental projects that are cost effective, more efficient, more effective. But we have to undertake those endeavors. That takes political will years before now to make that happen. And we have to see it through, which means it takes political will every day. And I think that's really important. You're not going to accomplish big, audacious goals without big investment and without big support politically, practically, and just from a team of amazing engineers and project managers and other leaders who made that happen. So thank you to everybody who was part of that. I think it was about a 9-year effort to get to where they are today, and everybody who's still working on it going forward. And now we're going to be able to do so much more because of that. I was also taken aback in a cool way by the different pictures looking at how the technology has changed from previous space capsules, looking at the space shuttle, and then looking at obviously our 2 astronauts this week with their clean displays in front of them with no analog. It clearly was jarring to me as somebody who grew up, for instance, in analog instruments on a helicopter panel, and then seeing them go to full liquid crystal displays and seeing things continue to change and adjust with that. It's amazing to see how the technology has changed pretty quickly, actually, and how we have better technology today that is less expensive and more effective, but also radically different than what we had just 10, 20 years ago. So
we have more computing power in our cell phones than the initial moon flight, the Apollo missions. It's crazy. It's crazy. And, the last point is I'll just make on this, that, because it's near and dear to our heart, is also this launch was really the first, I'll call truly public-private partnership between government and private industry, as this was a privately owned rocket opposed to one contracted to be built for the government.
Mm-hmm.
And as folks know who know us, we are big proponents of effective public-private partnerships, as we had developed with FirstNet. So it's exciting to see what can be done when industry and government really do come together, share resources, create the right incentives, and you look at the kinds of successes that that can come out of that. And so I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we need more of it.
With that, we are done for this week. Stay safe. Jason Karp Esquire with my good friend TJ Kennedy signing off from PSN News of the Week. We will see you next time. Take care.